Hello and welcome to this video looking into the certification of forest management. First, let's take a look at a short clip on sustainable forest management.
I wonder, if a forest is so important, then how can we maintain it? Sometimes, if a forest ecosystem is very fragile, we need to limit human disturbance as much as possible. In other cases, using the forest could actually help protect it. Harvesting and marketing the products from the forest, like wood, in a responsible manner can give the forest owner the resources to manage the forest well. FSC manages more than 200 million hectares of forest. That's equivalent to about 50 times the surface area of the Netherlands. What changes occur in the forest if you use it in a responsible manner? FSC has many requirements for the use of forests. First and foremost, a forest should always be a forest. Timber may be harvested, but the habitat of plants and animals must be preserved. Another essential requirement of sustainable forest management is that the harvesting of forest products should directly help improve the living and working conditions of the local people.
Bear in mind that most of the timber used for load-bearing construction purposes is softwood and comes from temperate and Nordic forests. But it is not by accident that we pay special attention to tropical forest and that most of the footage in this clip was from tropical forest. Because for facade fittings, including window frames, external doors and cladding, tropical timber is a more appropriate material, and there are a number of reasons for this. Firstly, it lasts for a long time in sometimes harsh conditions, much longer than softwood. Secondly, it has the same circular and environmental qualities as softwood. And last but not least, tropical timber that comes from sustainably managed forests contributes to the preservation of tropical forests. And this is where the construction sector and the forestry sector come together. There is mutual interest. The construction sector needs the forest for supply of resources. At the same time, the business case for sustainable forest management relies on sufficient income from the sale of forest resources. This is particularly true for tropical forests. In short, more demand for certified tropical timber leads to more tropical forests preserved and protected. Whereas we might tend to think that tropical forests should not be touched, the opposite is the case. Using tropical forest in a sustainable and certified way adds value to the forest and thus contributes to forest protection. You may wonder, is this also true for temperate and Nordic forest? And yes, to a certain extent it is. Generally speaking, forests in these climate zones are already well protected. The likelihood that these forests will be converted into other land uses is small. Sustainable forest management in these forests is not so much a protection measure, but rather a driver for change to achieve a more inclusive way of managing forests. This inclusive way involves creating better conditions for biodiversity, for instance by increasing the amount of standing and lying dead wood, as dead wood is, ironically, an important source of life. Many insects are dependent on dead wood, and these insects in turn are a major source of nutrition for many birds and other animals. Other important measures include creating more diversity in terms of tree species and tree age. Moving on slightly, for sustainable forest management, there are two major certification schemes: the Forest Stewardship Council, FSC, and the Programme for Endorsement of Forest Certification Schemes, PEFC. FSC is the oldest scheme and widely regarded as the world's most stringent and trusted forest certification system. Both schemes are private schemes and not for profit. Both certification schemes operate in a similar way. They set rules or standards for a forest manager to comply with. Then independent auditors are invited to assess whether the management of a forest complies with these standards. If the management of a forest of a forest is up to the required standard, then a certificate is granted. At present, approximately 360 million hectares, or 16% of all production forest, is certified, and about 20% of global roundwood production is FSC certified. That sounds great, you might say, but is that enough? Do we have enough wood to sustainably produce millions of wooden houses? Certainly there is enough. Let's take a look at the situation in Europe. The annual increase in timber volume in European forest, or in other words the yearly growth in available timber, is equivalent to a staggering 800 million cubic meters of wood, and approximately 2/3 of that is harvested. Therefore, there is a capacity for a potential extra supply of timber amounting to about 1/3 of that annual increment, so an extra 250 million cubic meters of wood. The current demand in Europe for construction is 50 million cubic meters per year. So even if the demand for construction wood were to double or triple, this demand could easily be met.